everybody. Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily. 1 week until Christmas. Oh my gosh. Can you believe it? Where did the time go? On the 7th day of Christmas. I don't have any packages to open today. So we're going to get right to the crime. I'm Rebecca. I host this show where I recap live trials. And when there's no live trials, I give you a true crime story. But there's a really interesting trial going on, and that's Colorado versus the 2 firefighter paramedics who are on trial for reckless homicide of Elisha McLean. Now, before we get there, we will go there, but there was a hearing on Friday in the Kowalski case. Take care of Maya Kowalski. Well, first things first, she's turned 18. So she was in the courtroom, and the plaintiff, her lawyer, did what they call an ora tennis motion, which means he didn't write it out. He's just asking the court, I'd like to replace her as the proper plaintiff, because up until now, it's been her father on her behalf. So she has been now substituted in as the plaintiff because she's now an adult. So this was the defense's, it was several different motions, but the main one I want to talk about is the defense's motion for new trial. And some of the reasons that they cite are just plain ridiculous, in my opinion. So the defense attorney, he gets up and he said there were 3 material misrepresentations made by juror number 1. And the first one was that when he filled out the jury questionnaire, he answered no to the question if he had ever been a victim of a crime. And apparently they found evidence that he had prosecuted his stepson for the attempted murder of him and his wife. What? Okay, that's an interesting one. So number 1, he said he lied on the jury questionnaire. And number 2, he had been served with an injunction regarding domestic violence. Now, this was 20 years prior to the trial, and it had to do with a child. And he said, had they known this, they would have just excused him for cause, because, this is all about the abuse of a child. So that was number 2. Number 3, when they're picking juries, they have a list of witnesses that they show the potential jurors, and the jurors are asked to look over that list and see if they know anybody. Well, apparently Deborah Salisbury, she's an attorney, her name was on that list, and this juror number 1 never indicated that he knew her, but he had been represented by her, or his wife had been represented by Deborah Salisbury in a divorce proceeding, a prior divorce. And this is the same attorney that represented the Kowalskis prior to this new attorney coming in, the big plaintiff attorney. So, and then he talked about the Nazi argument. Now, if I haven't talked to you about this, it's because it's so ridiculous. They amended their first motion against juror number 1. They want to interview juror number 1. So they filed an amendment, like a supplement to their motion, where they say that in one of the notes from juror number 1, because they were allowed to ask questions during the trial, in one of their notes, he asked a question about Dr. Sally Smith, and he used SS, and it looks like the Nazi symbol. So juror number 1, we're going to leap to this conclusion here, must be a Nazi. So the judge, he was trying to take this seriously, but he said, listen, you saw this during the trial. It didn't occur to you to object to it then? And he's like, well, I was focused on the trial and not. He goes, well, how did you figure this out? He goes, well, someone brought it to my attention. So he probably was going through social media and saw some wackadoo on Reddit that came up with this theory and decided, hey, let's throw this against the wall and see if it'll stick. So the judge was like, no, I think you've probably waived this argument. You saw the note. You looked at the note during trial, and if you didn't object to it then, So I think that's the way that's going to go. So so this hearing went on for quite some time. And there were some other motions that were thrown in there, but the judge did not rule on any of it yet. He would ask questions like, "Were I to rule this way, how would we do it?" kind of thing. So expect to see a decision soon regarding whether or not they're going to bring in juror number one, whether or not it will be. It's because this was the big thing. If they bring him in, do they do it in front of the cameras? He's already identified himself. Or do we do it like in chambers with the lawyers and the judge? So I don't know how this is going to go down. And I couldn't get a sense one way or the other which way the judge was leaning on interviewing juror number one. I think he's just going to come in and say the same thing he said during his questioning. No, 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 no. Oh, anyway. And there's this whole theory that juror number one, his wife, sat through some of the trial next to this girl named Jules, who was very vocal on social media under the Facebook name of Jules or the YouTube name of Jules. And she seemed to be, they're calling her an agent of the plaintiff because she apparently made friends with the plaintiffs. And so there's this theory that she was passing along inside information she got from the plaintiffs to the wife of juror number one. It's just crazy, isn't it? Yeah. How in the world are you going to ever prove that? I don't know. Anyway, all right, let's get back to the firefighter paramedics. Now, 23-year-old Eliza McLean was walking home 10:30 at night, late August, 70 something degrees outside. He had stopped at a Shell gas station convenience store, gone in, bought a couple of iced teas. He's wearing this long sleeve brown jacket and a face mask, a ski mask in August. So someone called 911 and said that, this was just strange, and they weren't saying that he had done anything wrong. They're just saying, here's this guy. He's walking down the street. He's got a ski mask on and he's got, I need some coffee. I think I'm losing my voice, which is not a bad thing. So the police approach him. He doesn't want to cooperate with the police. They end up in a big tussle. They're trying to restrain him. They're trying to do a carotid hold on him. He passes out. He starts vomiting, and they call for a medical assist. The firefighter paramedics that are on trial now went to responded to the scene. They administered ketamine. Following the administration of ketamine, they waited for him to calm down a bit. Then they put him on a stretcher. As they are putting the stretcher into the ambulance, he codes. His heart stops. He's not breathing. He goes into full CPR. Long story short, a couple days later, he's brain dead from lack of oxygen to the brain. And the family makes a decision to donate some of his organs and take him off of life support. And if you're looking at my Band-Aid, it's because I tried to cut my finger off with a butcher knife. Yeah, don't ask. It's not bad, but I think I just took a slice of it off. But this is my crochet finger. Yeah. Anyway, so the defense is now putting their case on. Prosecution has rested. The defense is putting their case on. Am I on? I just want to make sure the microphone's on. Okay. So the first thing they do is they put on an emergency room doctor who is also a toxicologist. And he said he has used ketamine hundreds of times, hundreds. And the two most common situations that he uses ketamine is when someone has a shoulder dislocation, or they need to reset a bone, i.e. my girlfriend, Mama C out there, who had to get her ankle reset over the weekend. Bless her heart. Much love to you, sweetheart. She's in the hospital for Christmas. So, and she got ketamine. She got ketamine. She just, because I said, what did that feel like when you got the ketamine? I'm going way far afield here, but she said, I felt like a cartoon on the wall. She was conscious, which is what this expert says happens. You're kind of conscious, but and if someone looks at you, it's like the lights are on, but nobody's home. So she was conscious, and she said, I felt like a cartoon on the wall, and they were talking to me. And she said she remembered being surprised that they could see her up on the wall. Okay. I know, it's crazy. So the main two situations he uses are like to realign a bone or put back a dislocated shoulder, and in children, because many of them will not cooperate. Like if they got to get stitches, things like that. So they give them a small dose of ketamine, which sedates them, and they're able to do whatever it is they need to do. And he said he has never, in his hundreds of times of using this drug, had to intubate anybody. Um, yeah, after following administration of this medication. So he said in the cases where he has seen ketamine overdose, the uh, the range of the dose was much higher than what you're seeing here. In this case, the Elijah McClain's range when they checked it was 1.4, which is therapeutic range. It's not an overdose range. Um, he talked about how uh, obviously they can't experiment on humans, but they've experimented on mice and given mice anywhere from 10 times to 100 times the dose of ketamine before it became lethal. So he said that ketamine is not contraindicated when someone has acidosis or is vomiting because it has a sedative effect. In fact, it can be used to treat the acidosis because the acidosis is happening, that buildup of acid in your body is happening because you're exerting yourself. So if you calm down, you're able to expel some of that CO2. The acid will eventually, I think we've all, I was a runner at one point in my life, not anymore. Now I only run if somebody's chasing me. But when you stop the exercise, you can feel like your muscles are burning. That's the buildup of acid. And once you kind of calm down, you drink some fluid, um, it goes away because the acid. And that's why they like to give massages to athletes after they've exerted themselves because it works out that acid buildup in the muscles. So it's not contraindicated with vomiting either. Now, he says the reason they like to use ketamine as a sedative because this is a drug where they are less likely to have a respiratory effect. In other words, if they're getting Versed or some of those other sedatives, they are more likely to have a respiratory effect. So he says vomiting is a side effect of ketamine, but it's not commonly seen. He would not expect any life-threatening effects from the dose of ketamine that was given to Elijah McClain. So, and he held up really well during cross-examination. They didn't have a whole lot to argue with him about. So then the next witness was a medical examiner. Now, he's a forensic pathologist, a medical examiner. He does autopsies. And keep in mind, I can only hear him. I cannot see him because it's impossible with the way the cameras are set up in this courtroom. You can see the witnesses, but they're like this little. You can't really, you can see that there's somebody on the witness stand. I don't know what the attorneys look like. I don't know what anybody looks like. I could not pick anybody out of the crowd because it's just the camera angles are so bad. So, and there's 3 different cameras, and you still can't make out what anybody looks like. But my sense is that he's an elderly gentleman who's like somebody's grandpa, somebody's favorite grandpa. And he just seemed, his demeanor on the stand was that he was amused by the entire thing. Because he would ask questions like, yeah, and he'd laugh. Um, which can be good and it can be bad because, you know, you need to take this seriously. And it was almost like he just felt like the whole thing was laughable. Like, this is ridiculous, which it kind of is, but, you know, anyway. So he disagreed with the manner of death. He said the manner of death should have been accidental, not homicide, not death at the hands of another person. He said this was an accidental death because there was no purposeful act that caused the death. So when you have the homicide, he's saying it has to be some kind of purposeful act, like they intended the consequences, or I don't know. Anyway, so this was not a purposeful act that caused the death. He's been a pathologist for 4 decades, very proud of that. He talked about the ketamine level being therapeutic. He saw no evidence that the ketamine caused this death, none. He examined the lungs, and he said what you were seeing in the lungs was an inflammatory response to the regurgitation of stomach contents. And so, in other words, he was aspirating. But he said he was aspirating before the administration of ketamine. And once it's in there, you're not getting it out. So that is where I left off with the testimony. So I still have like one more day to go. I've got Friday to listen to. And then today, as I'm bringing you this, Lieutenant Chuniak, the firefighter paramedic defendant, is taking the stand. He has opted to testify on his own behalf. And I suspect Cooper will as well. Those are the 2 defendants. So I'm very interested in what they have to say. Yes. All right. So, yeah, I did a couple of lives over the weekend. I was pretty busy this weekend because, you know, it's Christmas time. Christmas time. And I've been crocheting like a fool. Yeah. I know. Short show today, guys. But I'm going to go catch up with the day that we missed, ride my little tricycle around the town, and I will see you tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily. Have a wonderful day. Don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with someone you might, you know, think would enjoy it. And maybe they're by themselves for the holidays. Say, hey, check out this lady's podcast on YouTube Music. All right. Have a great day, everybody.